Hello, welcome. I'm Commissar Mark, and today we are going to take a look at C3 Augustus and how to build proper defenses and how to evaluate terrain to our advantage. Now, same principle will also apply to Julius players, but Augustus has more defensive structures overall, and Julius players will have to deal with having things like connected roads to your towers, where Augustus players will be able to disable that and just have towers whenever you want with just a little road to go with it. So we are here in a map that's called Barnabas Tarsum, made by myself, and I'm here just to show you some of the basic concepts. So the very first thing we should talk about is, let's take a look at this general area here. So all exposed edges like this are potential invasion points. You as a player should be aware that these are potential threatening spots, while if it's a custom map and the border is covered by rocks or trees, you can be pretty certain no invasions come from here. Also, if the map is not excessively cruel, usually you do not get invaded from entry or exit point, so I would not suspect it to be here, for example, but it could happen on some custom maps. Another thing, sometimes map makers will place natives nearby the edges, just so that you cannot easily just spawn camp the enemies with towers, because they might not want that. So if there are natives nearby an edge, it might be an indication that it is in fact an invasion point. Something to note is, on lots of custom maps you will have these strategic cliffs. You can put towers on these and fire at the enemies from safety, but you need to keep in mind that if an enemy gets shot by a tower or a watchtower or a javelineer or any projectile, it will cause them to aggro, and so they could start going towards the source of that damage or even prematurely attack, while if they didn't get shot they would just wait around more, which could be better if you need your troops to get into position, so just that's always a consideration. Another thing, I talked about this in my military video, but towers cannot shoot, or the ranged units in general, this applies to enemies as well as your javelineers as well as your guards from watchtowers and watchtowers themselves. They cannot shoot over 3 tiles wide terrain, so rocks that would be 3 tiles wide are blocking line of sight for towers or range units. Same with trees, same with cliffs if it's all staggered. If it's a building like a warehouse, same. So just keep these things in mind. So clear obstacles from potential kill zones where you want to set up your defenses in. Something to note, you can see that this has multiple potential invasion points, and so it's kind of a pain to defend all of this, but you don't really have to. What you just want to do is, you don't want to really remove many trees because they act as impenetrable walls. Enemies cannot go through trees, but they can go through a gap. If there is a gap, like is there a place where I can show that easily? For example, let's say that we had a wall here, and then you would have a forest that, like this. So this is blocked off, right? 3, 3, 3. But this gap, this diagonal, they can actually go through there. So just be aware of that. Same with your units and immigrants, they actually do that as well. If you watch your city closely, sometimes you can see that happen. So just be aware that that might happen. Now, with this layout, it's like Mediolanum in the campaign. You don't want to defend both of the passes, and so what you do is pick one that you find the best to defend. In this case, I'm just gonna wall this one, and we'll just wall it off. You can use other things. Aqueducts work as makeshift walls, but it's better to use palisades or walls, just so that the enemy doesn't see it as a target as well. And so this is gonna force them, they will basically, if you played Stronghold ever or Age of Empires and some of the tower defense maps, you'll find that the enemies will try to path to your city, and depending on what is chosen for them as a target, it could be your production chain or your most valuable building or your military units, things like that. So if you don't put your military units behind this wall, they will most likely, in 90% of the cases, ignore this, and they'll just go for, even if they spawn from here, the attack is gonna route all the way here, which is gonna buy you extra time. Super useful. In here, you can just start peppering them from this side with towers, and then something to note about towers in general. So I'm gonna show you several possible designs. So I've seen some people do things like, you build a huge wall like this, you give it double layer walls, you give it towers, like this. I mean, it's cool and all, but this isn't the best way to do it. that is something to be said about. You get guards. The tower itself will send out a guard on the wall, which is gonna throw javelins, but you don't need this. This is gonna, if you know anything about the enemies, if you watched them invade the city before, you know that if they stack, they can stack units in like one tile. It's sometimes it's like 20-30 men. They'll just march through the wall in like a split second, and they'll go further and further very quickly. So this doesn't really protect you in any way. It does shoot, but it's actually not. It's giving a false sense of safety. So you cannot really block them off for a very long time. You can kind of delay them a little bit, but preferably with a palisade. It's very cheap, and you can just spam it like this on an entry point. But keep in mind, it might aggro them, since they are actually actively fighting something in your city already. When they spawn, they'll just start bashing it. So this wall thing is just not really working. Instead, most efficiency you will get is from a single tower, like this, and then have a piece of wall sticking out, usually I would do 2, and then a road. And this is gonna ensure that the guard can actually spawn on this wall, and he will throw javelins, and he's actually not gonna walk anywhere nonsense, and he's gonna stay here and fight. So it is just the extra little value you can get from each single tower. You don't need to, this is not necessarily. The ballista is the main source of damage, but if you want the guards, you might as well do this. Now this is called pickets, tower pickets, which is like scout towers basically, or like separated little sniper towers basically. So what you do is you just set up several of these, and this is gonna act as a defense. Now if you build 3 thick walls, it will block line of sight as well, so keep that in mind. And towers, this one could not shoot the tower here, because the tower is also blocking line of sight of each other, so keep that in mind. These towers, there you would be having a perfect defensive line like this, where you put 1 or 2 layers of palisade, so you don't block line of sight. They're natives here. I'm gonna probably trigger them by building here, but that's fine. And yeah, so you would put a palisade, because when the enemy stops to engage things in melee, be it your units or walls, they actually are much easier targets for you. So just keep that in mind. It can be very useful, since when they stop, they get hit a lot. So this is how you would do it. And then if you pick a unit and set up a defense, you would be putting the unit here. You also want to, if you have multiple legions, you would be stacking these units. If we're talking about rough military maps and you need to maximize your potential, stack them on a single tile, and that's gonna make them just dense, and they'll all be able to fire at once. There's no blocking line of fire for units stacking on each other, so this is the best value you can get out of it. And so again, these picket towers, they'll serve very well, very minimal investment, and actually very little blockers, and this is the best optimal way to do it. If you want to build a watchtower thing, watchtowers are weaker, they only shoot arrows. They can be useful to take out enemies, but they are not like super great. What you want to do is you'll figure out where you want your, that last one is actually pretty bad. You'll figure out where you want your watchtower spam to be, and then you do this, and then just create a path for the guards, and then path them. This is gonna effectively give you an extra unit of javelineers, because they'll spam the guards constantly, and that's gonna help you increase your amount of projectiles, especially if you don't like to build like all javelineers, or if you cannot for some challenge reasons. It's good to have lots and lots of these guards. They can help you out significantly, and when you path the road, that's where they will go. Just keep in mind, you don't want to stretch it the other way, because then they would probably hang around back here. That's not what you want. These stars will also be able to shoot here, and this one here, but if you want to also put them into defenses, keep in mind, don't obstruct your regular tower range, because the ballista is your single best source of damage. But stuff like this can work, so just putting them back here, it's not really blocking anything, it's just gonna give you extra stuff. And so yeah, this would help you. Towers also do shoot at animals, so just keep that in mind. In regards to military in Augustus, you can build multiple barracks if you enable it in options, but in Julius you would be just spamming multi-barracks to exploit it. It's an exploit, because initially you are only supposed to be building 1 barracks. But that doesn't really matter. You can also get, if you play without that setting, which is recommended, it's not really balanced around having multiple barracks. If you want to have them, but not cheat with the setting, you can also build Grand Temple to Mars, which is gonna act as a second barracks. And I talked about this before, but yeah, you can pick if they train guards or soldiers as a priority, and of course they need weapons if you want to make legionaries from them. Grand Temple Mars also allows you to build 10 up to 10 forts instead of up to 6 total. Something else, if we, for example, didn't want this wall and we wanted to block this passage here, what you can do, forts are actually super useful. If you build a fort on the border like this, they will get destroyed. If this is an invasion point, enemies will arrive and smash the fort. But that's the only instance where forts are damageable. Forts are invulnerable. Another case might be if an earthquake strikes the fort, then I think it destroys it as well. But otherwise, the forts are impenetrable. And so if you are careful about these little diagonals, as I talked about, and you make sure that there are no diagonals, you can actually put a fort and block off approaches with your forts, because the structure is actually impassable. So, you know, it's indestructible and impassable, so it's gonna just raid out enemies. And this is gonna mean that they cannot really go here. You could even put it so that the training ground is actually on the other side, so that you don't have to path the units through here. But this is now impassable from this side. So if we were sure that this is not an invasion point anywhere here, we could just block this off and be safe, you know? So use this at your own discretion. But keep in mind that the fort structure will block ballista line of fire though. So that's actually kind of bad to have it like very close to your defenses. But if you have some of these choke points to make them walk for a longer time before reaching your city, you can use the forts to kind of stretch it. In addition, your troops will be close to that invasion point as well, which is useful. And not so much on maps like this where like it's everywhere you have invasion points. If that's the case, then usually putting your forts into a central location to be able to reach anywhere you might need is actually more useful than having them on specific edges, especially if it's legionaries, because legionaries are very slow to arrive in different points on the map. So just keep that in mind. If you have any questions about military, if I missed anything, let me know. This is just a very short one, but it should cover the basics and how to actually set up an effective defense. Actually, before we leave, I might actually show you something. I'm gonna go into a city construction kit for that though, because we wasted all the money there. Let's go to Valencia. I'm gonna show you something. So, Civil War scenario. You go in that and Caesar's gonna invade you. He's gonna invade you from the red sign, from road from Rome. And what happens with that is you will often face lots and lots of legionaries, very annoying. Even on maps where you don't have military, like Valencia, you actually can defend against it. It can be used against enemies where there are invasion points as well, but the same strategy will apply. But basically, so how you want to do it is, you would want to do something like cut into this side, build, if you're using Augustus, you build an arena, give it services so it doesn't die. And then let's take a look. So clear this. Let's say we have a city. I'm just starting, so don't really have a city. But let's build some gladiator schools and lion pits. Each one is gonna send constantly walkers towards the arena. This is lion cheese. It's called lion cheese strategy, and it is very powerful. A lion can defeat almost any enemy. I think it almost kills an elephant, and so this is gonna constantly spam. It's very powerful. Use it at your own discretion. But if you are in a bind, it can save your bacon. So it could be something that you have to resort to on some crucial maps that are like very, very, very difficult. I've played like the Rebels of Spain map that is just absolutely ridiculous, and there you kind of have to do it. And so you can use this, path them around. They will walk very long distance because they are destination walkers. And so they'll go through all these places until they reach this arena. If we had people in the city, that is, I might have to start a block just to show you. Let's just add some extra line pits, and I'm gonna show you in practice. So we'll waste our money so that Caesar invades us. Let's build a shit ton of useless gardens, and he's gonna just go insane. And you can see that this is a very thick defensive line of lions, and so he's probably not gonna have any chance against it. Just to show you, we don't have any military units, by the way. This is just that, and you can beat up to maximum size attacks with this. Just, you know, if you need, you can add extra gladiator schools or line pits. It's gonna help. Okay, there we go. Legion attacks. Keep in mind, I did receive a Mars blessing in the last second, but yeah, that's gonna probably diminish their numbers a little bit. But let's observe the fight. See how the lions do. You can see that they get immediately stuck on it, and the lions are gonna keep funneling in there. Just gonna absolutely mulch them. You can see how they are falling very quickly. And this is the starting attack, so it's like 3/4 worth of legionaries, but keep in mind Caesar's legionaries are better than yours. And just immediately defeat it. And oh yeah, Emperor has changed his mind for some reason. So they would like to return, but they have been all devoured. Anyways, so that's gonna be just something for the cheeky little maps where you need to do this, but I hope that this helps you to understand the defenses a little bit better, and that's gonna be it for me for today. So thanks for watching and see you around. Bye.